Happy New Year, everybody. It is the BetSided team of Ben Heisler, Reed Wallach, and Peter Dewey, the Monday crew from the Bet and Breakfast podcast, which you guys should also check out right here on YouTube the next time you guys have an opportunity to listen. We're on with you live every Monday and Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, going over some of our favorite plays of the week. But we are here today to talk about the college football playoff. Kicking things off, we have the Cotton Bowl between Alabama and Cincinnati. Bama, a 13.5-point favorite in that matchup against the number 4 seeded Bearcats. Then you have the Orange Bowl between number 3 Michigan and number 2 Georgia. Michigan plus 7.5 in that matchup with a total of 45.5. Should mention that total in the Alabama Cincinnati game currently sitting at 57.5 over at WinBet Sportsbook. So on the course of today's show, we are going to go through our favorite plays between either of those two games taking place on New Year's Eve. So Peter, I will kick things off with you. You were looking at the Cotton Bowl. Alabama, like I said, a 13.5-point favorite over Cincinnati. Too much of a point spread there, or do you like Bama to cover?
I love Bama to cover. You will never catch me betting against Nick Saban in a college football playoff scenario.
Pete, shouldn't be
I
surprised.
I picked Alabama to win the SEC championship, even though they were a huge dog against Georgia. I love them in this spot. You look at Nick Saban; he's 5-1 in college football playoff semis. He's 5-0 in his last 5. He lost the first one to Ohio State. Those 5 wins, they win by an average margin of victory of 20.2 points in those 5 games. They're playing a Cincinnati team, which it's great that they made the playoff. I'm actually happy we got some parity this year in terms of the teams that are making the playoff, but they're going to be outclassed in this game. Cincinnati struggled against a couple AAC opponents this year. It's a completely different animal when you're facing an Alabama team that dominated Georgia's defense, which is arguably the best defense we've ever seen in the history of college football in the SEC championship. I know Cincinnati has a good squad. They don't hold a candle to Georgia. I think Bryce Young and company are going to be able to do whatever they want. And the other thing I look at in this game, Cincinnati needs to establish the run. They run the ball on 53% of their plays, average 5.5 yards per carry. Alabama, number 2 in the country in terms of opponent yards per carry allowed. They allow just 2.6 yards per carry. I think they're going to make this tough on Cincinnati. I think this game's going to be a blowout.
All right, we'll come back to the Cotton Bowl in just a second with my pick for this week. But Reed, you're going on to the Orange Bowl. Either Michigan plus 7.5 right now over at WinBet, Georgia, the 7.5-point favorite, or are we looking at the total, which currently sits at 45.5?
I'm going to go with Michigan. I think that the book kind of came out on Georgia in the SEC championship game. I think if you're able to get off to a hot start against this team, make Stetson Bennett or even JT Daniels, if he comes into this game, beat you, I think that this is a problem for Georgia. They are not looking to get into a shootout. So how does Michigan do that? They have to set the edge with their rushing quarterback, backup quarterback, but he is in the game often, J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum. If they're able to get the edge and flip the field early, I think Michigan is in a great spot to take advantage of a Georgia offense that just wants to run the ball. They want to pound the rock. This total at 45.5 is set to Georgia winning this game. If Michigan's able to clear 24, 27 points, Georgia's in big, big trouble. And this is a Michigan offense. They're not as explosive as Alabama, but they stay on schedule. Top 25 in success rate this season. So I think Michigan is able to win this game outright. I'm going to be sprinkling on the money line, mainly because Aiden Hutchinson, he's going to be able to wreak havoc in the backfield against Stetson Bennett. First-year defensive coordinator Mike McDonald has done a great job this season. I think that he's going to mimic this Alabama defense and give Bennett trouble all day. So give me Michigan with the points and sprinkle on the money line. I think that we got an upset brewing in Miami.
Wow, imagine the opportunity for John Harbaugh, or not John Harbaugh, but Jim Harbaugh to completely change the narrative. Get a big win against Ohio State, then go to the college football playoff, get a win against the team that had been number 1 throughout the entirety of the season with Georgia. Pretty remarkable. I'm going to go back to the Cotton Bowl for my pick, guys, and go with something a little bit different. I'm going to go with the first half under 29.5 between Alabama and Cincinnati. Yeah, I think the narrative has flipped on Alabama after several weeks of a good but not a great offense. But because they dropped, 41 points against Georgia's historic defense, that all of a sudden this is an elite Alabama offense. They're not. It's still the same Alabama team that did nothing against a very mediocre Auburn team before the Bryce Young 97-yard drive that eventually won them the Heisman. As for Cincinnati, they have a very good defense. They're tops in takeaways this season. They're third in interceptions. And then with Bama, they're still going to be playing without John Mechie on the offensive side of the ball. And we talked about their defense. Peter, you mentioned it a little bit earlier. Number 2 team in stopping the run this year. I think you're going to see a really strong defensive battle, perhaps in the first half of this game. And then maybe Alabama starts to pull away in the second half after Cincinnati has exhausted almost every option. I kind of see this game going in one of 2 different ways. Either Bama just crushes them from the get-go, and maybe they put up 20-something points and Cincinnati does nothing, or both of these defenses play well, and if the 2 offenses start to go off, then we're looking at a completely different narrative. So I might be strolling down narrative street just a little bit too much, but I think you're going to see a defensive battle here. And one other thing to consider, the overall total in this game is set at 57.5 over at WinBet. However, the total in the first half is still at 29.5. So there's an actual advantage to taking the under because the points have not adjusted to the total going down in the entirety of the game. I think it's a little bit of a sharp move to be able to go ahead and look at that discrepancy between the 2 totals in the first half versus the second half. So there you go. Those are our picks for the college football playoff heading your way on Friday, December 31st. For my guys Reed and Peter, I am Ben. For more content on the college football playoff as well as different bowl games throughout the course of the week, make sure you guys check us out by going to fansided.com/BetSided and check us out on social media as well at BetSided on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram.